All right, so what that slide said is that, to make it simpler, is that a person that has an allergic reaction, the way that that even develops is that, um, when a foreign body is introduced in the body, right? A foreign object, pollen, a bee sting, peanuts, whichever one it is. Um, what happens is once it enters your system, the body, right? Your immune system, your white blood cells. I'm just gonna talk in generalities. Your white blood cells will identify this foreign object, and it's gonna mark it, um, so to speak. It's gonna mark it. It's going to identify it. It's going to mark it, and it's going to create uh, little antibodies that will help defend against the foreign body, because this allergen in your body is seen as an enemy, right? So every time it comes in from that point moving forward, your immune system is ready to attack by creating those little antibodies. And what happens is on the second exposure and the third exposure and the fourth exposure, so pretty much every single exposure after the first exposure, your immune system now can identify this foreign body and attack it. All right. And what it does, the biggest thing that it does, as far as it affecting your patient with an allergic reaction, is that the white blood cells release histamine. So histamine is the actual problem here. So once that histamine is released, every time that foreign substance is in the body, when that histamine is released, that's what causes all the problems. So that's what's gonna, when they attach to the receptors in your vessels, it's gonna make them wider. So it's gonna dilate your vessels. What is that gonna do? If the vessels are dilated in the body, what happens to your blood pressure, Michaela?
Sorry, what happens to your blood pressure? Can you say the right before that?
So whenever histamines attach to receptors in the vessels, what happens to those vessels?
They dilate
They dilate. And why is that bad for my patient?
because your blood pressure drops.
Perfect. Awesome. So those histamine, they also affect the bronchioles in a different manner. Now, Veronica, can you tell me how histamine affects your lungs, your airway?
It can get swollen.
It gets swollen. Yeah, so it's called bronchoconstriction, right? So this histamine makes your vessels bigger and drops your blood pressure, and then makes your bronchioles smaller, and it prevents air from coming into your system and leaving your system. So that's why it's a big deal. Your patient's gonna die if they don't get help. Um, so that's first exposure. So okay, so inside the first exposure of an allergen, immune system forms antibodies. We talked about that. Antibodies identify and attempt to attack particular foreign substance. Antibodies combine only with allergen they were formed in response to. Talk about that. Okay, so on the second and subsequent exposures, so at this point, the antibodies that we talked about, they already exist in the cells, right? They exist. They were made from the first exposure. Antibodies combines with allergen, leading to the release of histamine and other chemicals into the bloodstream. Histamine is what we care about most because that's what causes the most problems. So chemicals cause harmful effects. Those harmful effects are what we talked about. It's going to lower your blood pressure because of vasodilation, and it's going to prevent adequate ventilation because of the bronchoconstriction. All right, guys, let's go ahead and take a little 10-minute break, and I'll see you back here in 10 minutes.